Hello, I'm Chuck Wolf, Chief Executive for Charles J. Wolf Associates, LLC. As a motivational speaker and a leadership consultant and executive coach and trainer, I often work with very successful people in their companies. Since many can't afford a professional, I volunteer to host a radio talk show called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, on a nonprofit community radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut, WPKN. My reason for doing the show is to share with as many people as possible this wonderful process for helping people manage their own emotions and their relationships with others. My goal is for everyone listening to learn to use the Emotion Roadmap to make life better. As you listen to me, help others, I hope you are also learning. As a Simsbury resident, I'm delighted to be able to make the show available through Simsbury TV. To learn more, go to my website, www.emotionroadmap.com. Thank you for listening and watching. And this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. It's great to be back here with you. Last week I had a show with a good friend and colleague of mine, one of the best leaders I know, John Caparella. Is a show from the past, but it's one of those that gets lots and lots of people listening to it after the fact, because John's one of those people that knows how to create a culture of trust. And other shows I've talked about trust, and I've talked about what it takes to engage people and how do you get your employees to do everything they can to work for you in a way that if you dreamed about it, you woke up in the morning and said, I wish everybody felt like they couldn't wait to come to my office and work with me on whatever it is we're trying to get done. And John's one of those people that gets you to feel that way and gets you to really feel like you want to make a difference in the company that you work for. And I know that's rare, and I just like to play that every once in a while, because it's one of those conversations that you'd love to be able to have with the person that owns the company where you work, to talk about what it takes to engage people. The Emotion Roadmap is all about helping people to create the feelings that they want to experience, not the feelings they are experiencing necessarily, but the feelings they want to experience. It also is a show about recognizing the importance of emotion and the idea that emotions are signals. They're evolutionary in nature, and they signal us to pay attention to certain things. Emotions are kind of like breathing. We're always feeling them, but we don't often think about them. Just a quick thought about that. When I say emotions are like breathing, it's one of those things where when you breathe, you're not normally thinking, hey, I'm breathing. That's great, unless you're in trouble in some way. But I had an experience recently where I went up to, on vacation, to a very high altitude, over 12,000 feet high. And I found myself really noticing that I was having struggles with my breathing. And I thought about the fact that I talk about breathing a lot, in the sense that I was paying attention. Was I getting enough oxygen in? And what do I need to do to get more oxygen in? Well, that's sort of like your feelings. Every once in a while, your feelings say, pay attention to me. And help me to deal with what it is that's going on, because your feelings are an alert system that tell you when something's happening that you need to pay attention to. Sometimes we try to repress our feelings, ignore our feelings. When we talk about managing our emotions, we think sometimes that means to just repress them, and it doesn't at all. It means understand what our emotions are telling us. Think about whether the emotions we're experiencing are helpful to us. Think about what we're trying to get done, and if the emotions that we actually are experiencing at a given point in time are not helpful, consider what would be helpful and how you might change your own feelings to the feelings that would be more helpful or more ideal for you. That's what this show's about. So I want to thank everybody who's tuned in and listening and listens to me regularly. I'm on the air. Again, I'm Chuck Wolf. I'm on the air 12 to 1 p.m., the first and second Wednesdays of each month. And I also want to just make a quick note just to encourage people that if you're interested in supporting the station, you know that we're in a fund drive now, and so it'd be great if you could do that. I'm going to talk a bit about that at the very end of my show today. But right now, I want to just recognize that you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, an award-winning radio station known for its music and its substantive talk shows. And I wanted to just encourage you to give me a call if you've been waiting to talk to me about how you might be more effective at managing your own emotions. The tagline for my show, called The Emotion Roadmap, is to take the wheel and control how you feel. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I also want to recognize that it is Black History Month, and I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be the other. And because I'm not black, and yet I have compassion for the situations that everyone finds themselves in these days in terms of trying to get along, get ahead, be successful, and I want to say something in support of the people who are listening who are in the black community. But I also want to talk about the black community as being different than me, as the other. And I don't want to talk just about the black community in that way, but I want to talk about what it means to be the other. Because how we define ourselves is really important in terms of how we manage our emotional relationships with others. Because part of us wants to be friendly or get along with or be in the same circles as people who are more like us than who are different than us. But what does it mean to be like us? What does it mean to be different? And I want to talk about this concept of the other, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But there are a couple other things have happened recently, and I want to talk about this idea of people who you may not pay attention so much to sports, but I like sports as a metaphor for life, because sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. And those who are regular listeners know that I was brought up and raised in Massachusetts, and I'm a loyal sports fan of the Boston teams, or the New England teams. And so having said that, when the Super Bowl happened, you may have heard me talk on other shows about the culture that has been built with the New England Patriots. And now there's a saying in New England that they hate us because they ain't us. Because a lot of people sometimes get jealous of people who are winners and seem to win all the time. And as a loyal Patriot fan, I'm someone who really recognizes and values the idea that the New England team is almost always a contender in the playoffs, and an amazing record in terms of going to a number of Super Bowls. But they didn't win this time. And the Philadelphia Eagles won. Again, you may or may not be a sports fan, but I want to talk about what it feels like to lose, because all of us have lost something at some point. We've lost a job, we've lost a spouse, we've lost a girlfriend, a boyfriend. We may have even lost a child. We may have lost a pet. But we've lost things over the course of our lives. All of us have. But how do you deal with losing? And I want to talk a bit about someone that you may not like him because he's won so much, or you may think he's a cheater, or you may think he's done things that are not right. But a lot of people believe, especially in New England, that he is just a really special person. And that's Tom Brady, the quarterback of the New England Patriots. And I want to talk about him in a couple of ways. One is that, if you don't know, Tom is somebody that has taken lower salaries than anybody else in the league who plays at a quarterback level, and many think he's the greatest of all time. And yet he is one of the lowest paid quarterbacks so that the team can fund other players. Just think about that for a minute. How many people do you know would take less salary than what they're worth on the open market in order to have other teammates get paid more in order to build a winning team, as opposed to just take what you can when you can? Because to be able to play at a professional level like that doesn't happen that long for most people. It certainly happened a long time for him. But I want to read you a letter he wrote that he shared with the public about his dealing with the loss of the Super Bowl. Now, he had a great game, and the team, I thought, was going to actually win it in the last few minutes of the game. Kind of thought it would come down to a last-minute drive where the Patriots would come up and win the game. And they had the chance, but they didn't. They didn't win their game. And so I want you to just listen to what he spoke about, because I think it's something worth everybody thinking about in terms of a loss and how people might deal with a loss. And again, it's not something that you want to lose. Nobody ever wants to lose, right? But sometimes we lose, and there's not much we can do about it when that happens. But let me read you what he wrote, because I just think it's really powerful. First, this was an article that I picked up on the Facebook. It's written by a person named Nicole Yang. And it says, after a disappointing 41-33 loss to the Eagles in Super Bowl 52, Tom Brady said he is full of gratitude. The Patriots quarterback wrote in an Instagram post Friday morning, the number one feeling he experienced since Sunday's upset is gratitude for his teammates, coaches, opponents, fans, family, and more. So here's Tom Brady's full remarks. Tom wrote, "It has taken me a few days to reflect on our Super Bowl loss, as well as the great season our team had. There are many emotions when you come up short of your goal, and they are all part of learning and growing in this journey of life. Learning turns everything into a positive, and the number one feeling I have had the past 4 days is gratitude. Gratitude to my teammates for the incredible effort given all season, regardless of the challenges we faced. Gratitude toward my coaches for the effort and sacrifice they make to put us players in the best position to win. Gratitude to the NEP organization for supporting us on our very challenging and difficult journey." New England Patriots organization. Excuse me. "Gratitude to the Philadelphia Eagles team and organization for bringing out the best in us and being gracious winners, as well as congratulations on winning the championship. Gratitude toward our fans who showed up every week to cheer us on and commit their time and energy and love and support to what our goals are. And gratitude to my family and friends who continue to love and support my dreams. Thank you all. I love you all. Best, Tom." I remember as the game ended and my grandson was watching, and he was all dressed up in Patriots gear, and he was feeling like he wanted the Patriots to win. He's just 6 years old, and he's a wonderful young boy who's going to be a wonderful man at some point. And he's learning, and we're all learning life's lessons as we go on this journey together. And he was really sad when the Patriots lost, and I explained to him a little bit of what I think Tom Brady was saying here. But I also had some very good friends who were Philadelphia Eagles fans. These have been friends for over 30 years. And as a family, the father was the committed football player, and then the mother too. And that two of them, with their 3 daughters and now their extended families with children, grandchildren, and husbands for 2 of their daughters and boyfriend with another daughter, they all get together on Sundays, every Sunday they can during football season, and watch the Philadelphia Eagles play football. And now, having been a Red Sox fan all of my life, I know what it felt like to not have a championship in your lifetime. Now, the Red Sox had won a lot of World Series during the course of the early 1900s. That was a long time ago, and in my lifetime, I'd never seen one. And we suffered greatly. And the Philadelphia Eagles had never, ever won a Super Bowl. And this family that really lived and breathed Philadelphia Eagles football, when their team was playing my team or our team, our family's team, I actually was glad, because I thought if the Patriots don't win, I really am happy for this family that's good friends of ours, that they have a chance to experience what it feels like when your team's never won to win for the first time in a big event. So I was very happy for them. I try to explain to my grandson that sometimes you don't win, but you want to be happy for those that do win. Because just as he was sad, if their team had lost, then they would have been sad. And this leads me to this conversation of what it means to be the other, and how you can value the other, and how we define ourselves. Because what I began to do with the way I viewed the Super Bowl was, one, sure, I was upset that the Patriots didn't win, and I actually expected them to win in the last couple of minutes, but they didn't. And while it hurt and caused me some degree of sadness, because it was a loss, and sadness is what happens when you experience a loss, I also was grateful that the team that won was a team of people that I cared deeply about, and that they had the chance to experience a championship for the first time themselves as a family. And I was trying to explain that to my grandson, because I think as we grow and learn and experience life, there's lots of lessons that come our way, and some of them we get right away, some take longer, and some we never get. And I hope today to talk to you about something that I hope this is a learning experience for a lot of you, because this is something I've thought about a lot. And I was privileged in terms of where I went to school, college, and graduate school, and so forth, and had some great professors who taught me some things that I'd like to share with you today. And it has to do with something called the other. And let me explain by saying it this way. When I was a college student many years ago, I saw a video, a black and white video, and all that was on the video was a number of X's, like 9 X's, and 1 circle. It was called The Circle of O. And the video was all about just watching the X's and all of a sudden seeing the X's as like a group that would gather together and exclude the circle. Now, it sounds silly, but you'd see the circle move into the group with the X's, and all the X's would kind of move away from the circle. And they would cluster in different ways. And sometimes they would leave one at a time. But every time in all the, 5 to 10 minutes that the video went on, the circle would end up alone. And what it wanted to communicate was how we create circles by forming groups of X's and excluding the other. Now, as simple as that sounds, and perhaps silly to you, I was so sad watching this video because it called to mind any time I may have excluded someone else. So I think there may have been a caller, but I don't seem to have it here. So if you want to call in, please call in again. And the number is 203-331-9756. Kind of excited about the topic, so excited to talk to you about it. But if you got something you'd like to share, please give me a call, 203-331-9756. And I'll give that a minute, see if somebody wants to call back and talk to me. The show is about calling in and getting some help for people that want to manage their emotions more effectively. Again, the show is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'm Chuck Wolf, the host for the show. And I'm talking about the other, but I'll wait a minute and give you a chance to call if you like. Somebody call in the office, but if you want to call the line that I can answer, it's 203-331-9756. Thank you. Well, maybe a call back, but let me continue. I want to talk about this circle of O and this idea that the ways we define ourselves are different. Think about who you hang around with currently. Are they more like you or less like you? Has it been influenced by anything in particular? Excuse me. One of the things that happened as I experienced this circle of O, but other learnings along the way too, where I found myself defining who I was, who I wanted to be, how that was different than who I actually was, and what I wanted to achieve and become in my life. And I began to identify myself. Oh, I got to have a call. Just a sec. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Sue.
Sue. Hi, Sue. How you doing?
Okay.
What can I do for you today? Oh, could you turn your radio down? I can hear it in the background.
Okay.
What can I do for you today?
First, I want to tell you what. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
What can I do for you today?
I want to tell you what. Hold on. First, I want to tell you what a terrific show you have, and I want to wish everybody a wonderful Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Hold on. Yes. I'd like your opinion on an issue that's been going on for a while, and I value your opinion, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
Sure.
Okay. All right. It has to do with my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law and I have always been incredibly close. I mean, closer than most brothers and sisters, even though he's a brother-in-law.
Okay.
All right. March of 2014, he called my husband and I, and he said that he needed $4,000 immediately. It had to do with school for one of his children. And we said, of course, he's never come to us for money before. He said, put it on your credit card and send it right to the school. And, of course, we did that. And he said, we will we will be. I said I will reimburse you right away. Okay, and he gave us a date when he was going to start reimbursing us, and that date came and went, and another date came and went, and then he was continually lying to us about when he was going to reimburse us. And at one point we were on vacation in Florida, and he said, open up an account so that I can do direct deposit. And we spent most of the afternoon on our vacation in a bank opening an account, which he never put any money into. To this date, he has not paid us back a penny. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is he went to our son. He asked our son for $4,000. And here's the worst part. He told our son not to tell us. I feel I can never forgive him and never trust him again. And to this date, he's never paid us back. And he's continuing to promise. So far, we haven't seen anything. And I've pretty much wrote him off as scum. What is your opinion?
I think he has some kind of serious problem, and that he is dealing with in some way, and somehow made you a part of it. Because why would anybody jeopardize a family relationship in the way that he did it unless he was struggling with something that was something he didn't want to share and something that he was unable to handle himself? I guess if I'm in your shoes, you have a couple of choices. You write him off, which is perfectly understandable, considering not that just that he offended you and your husband by taking a loan and then going through these pretend actions as if he was going to pay you back and never did, but it's more unforgivable what he did with your son, I think, and asking him not to.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So I think, this is not your brother. You said it's your brother-in-law, and it is it's your husband's brother, I guess. So since it's your husband's brother, I mean, it isn't just, I think that's something you and your husband have to work through, because I think if you just write him off and your husband still wants to be close to him because it's his brother, that creates some problems inside your relationship, and you want to try to avoid that. You don't want this person's inappropriate actions to impact your relationship. Does that make sense?
My husband and I had totally different upbringings, and because of my upbringing, I have totally written him off for good. My husband came from a wonderful family, and he still has continual correspondence with him. Sometimes I see the emails they send back and forth, and it's like love you, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, my father-in-law is 97, and he's in the hospital, and there's a good chance we may be close to the end, which means that everyone's going to be coming in for the funeral.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my thought for you. You want to. The show's about being in control of your own feelings, right? The show is called "Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel," and you're not going to be able to change how your brother feels. It's going to be, should your father.
You mean my brother-in-law?
Your husband, actually, how your husband feels. You're not going to be able to change that. You're probably not going to change much about your brother-in-law either. And I would think that for the times that you're with him, despite the fact that you've written him off as scum, I don't think you're nice to him for him, because that makes, I understand why you would not want to do that. But you may want to be nice to him for your husband and his family, just for the period of time that you have to be together, and just tolerate it and know that it's not uncomfortable, and know your true feelings. But I think you do it for your husband, not because of anything to do with him. In other words, this person has put a rupture in a relationship with his whole family that is something that you've been able to kind of set aside and just push aside. but your husband has a different feeling about it. And I believe that the way we deal with each other's families in a relationship in a marriage is that even if we don't like the people that our spouse comes from, that we tolerate them and do our best to get along with them, not because of them, but because we care so much about the person that we're partnered with.
Well, my husband and I have discussed this. I mean, we've had 5 years to discuss it.
Right.
And we have decided that he is different than me. He treats things the way he treats things. I treat things the way I treat things. And he totally understands. His mother, my mother-in-law, is one of my closest friends.
Yeah.
She totally understands. She has no idea why he did this. In fact, I believe he owes them money too that he's not going to be paying back. So they know he's not welcome in our house. And he came in October to visit, and I just didn't go over to see him, and
Sure.
I would not.
Right.
And so he's been told if he ever sees me to just steer clear and stay away.
So it sounds like you've got something worked out with everybody. I guess it sounds like you're handling it. What else different do you want to do?
If he should, I have no hope that he's going to ever do this. But if he should, I mean, the guy. Do you know what the guy does for a living?
No.
He's an attorney.
Okay.
All right. So if he should pay us back after everything that's happened, especially with our son,
Right.
what do you feel I should do towards him?
It's a hypothetical. I don't think it's going to happen, so I don't think you have to deal
No,
with
I don't
it.
think it's going to happen either. But, I mean, right now he's told my husband that he's going to start paying us back in April.
Okay. I mean, you just have to go with what your gut tells you, I think, because...
My gut tells me that he's scum and I should never have anything to do with him again. And I'm very comfortable with that.
Okay. Okay. I mean, the only reason I would say that you might want to feel differently is because of your spouse. But if your spouse is comfortable with what you feel and that he's accepted that, then I don't think you have to change.
No, he knows how I am.
Yeah.
And he knows that when somebody does something horrible, they're off the list and they never get back on.
Okay. Well, I believe in people getting second chances, but I mean, you've had 5 years with this, and I think that there are certain. The only time you may want to think differently about this is if you ever find out what happened in this guy's life to make him do these things, because once you hear that, it may influence you, and it may not. It may not make any difference.
He's an alcoholic.
Okay, so he has trouble that way. So maybe at some level you feel some forgiveness for him. I mean, that's a charitable thing to kind of do, but also if he's somehow impacted and hurt your family, especially since he involved himself. I mean, it's one thing if it was just you, but the fact that he involved your son, I'm supportive of you never having a relationship with him in that sense.
You are?
Yeah. I mean, again, if somebody impacts my children.
Yeah.
That's off limits for me. That at that point,
Chuck, I'm so glad you said that because that's exactly how I feel too. And I was thinking maybe I was too strong in my feelings, but I'm so glad that you agree.
Well, as I said, sometimes it's kind of like what do you want going forward? And if you're comfortable where you are, and your husband's comfortable where you are, and you feel like if people violate your children, that's the end. There is no turning back on that. Then that's who you are, and that's what people got to deal with. Now, if he ever tries in some way to make things up with you, then you can rethink it. But at this point, my guess is he never does. So.
No, if he ever talked to me again, I would probably very simply tell him to drop dead.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so did you? Did I help you at all? I mean, I don't.
No. You verified my thoughts. I thought that I was maybe being too hard on him, but it's the way I am. But I'm so glad that, I mean, when I heard that he approached our son gave him the money
Yeah.
and said, I'm giving you the money. I don't want it back. Don't ever give it back to me, but don't ever come to me for any more.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like your son handled it well, too.
You what?
I think your son handled it well, too.
Yes. Well, luckily our son is very wealthy, so the money didn't mean much to him.
Yeah, but I think I think the way he handled it was good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, it shows about taking the wheel and controlling how you feel. So if it helped you to know that I kind of agree with, if somebody does something to my children, that's off limits, and there is no coming back from that, unless again there's circumstances that somehow make me feel like, well, okay, I can understand it, but I think the circumstances, and it's still not acceptable, and so end of story.
Good. Thank you so much, Chuck, and have a wonderful, wonderful Valentine's Day.
Okay, you too. So take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks, so that was, sometimes we have relationships with family members that really strain our ability to get along. I do want to just emphasize, though, at the same time, I think, if you hurt my children, that's pretty unacceptable to me, too. But sometimes you want to try and clean it up for the other person in your life, or for your family member, because it's important to them. And in this case, it sounded like, that they had talked about that, and it was okay. So I think you do everything you can to avoid those kind of situations, and you try and work through things, and you always want to give the person the benefit of the doubt as much as you can. But I don't think it's unusual if, as a parent, if somebody comes to your child and then says to, involves your child in a way that's somehow secretive and says they can't tell you. I don't want that part of my life anyway. That's how I would feel about it. Unless there's some way you can understand why they were in that spot and then feel some forgiveness. I mean, ultimately, forgiveness is the best choice, but it's not the only choice. Okay. So anyway, I was talking about this other concept about how we define ourselves. And one of the ways we define ourselves is by who we are. Think about when you were growing up. What neighborhood did you live in? I mean, I sometimes define myself as my neighborhood. I mean, the street I grew up on. Let me give you an example. It was a long time ago when I was little, a very long time ago now. But I kind of thought of myself as being the person in the town that I lived in as sort of being on the lower end of the demographic scale. We weren't wealthy. My father was working class. He was a truck driver. And in the town we lived in, there were a lot of people that had more money than us. And so when some of the people I'd go to school with that I was friendly with went to camp, I couldn't afford to go. And so I sort of defined myself as being on that street is not as a great thing, and wishing I could have been in the other neighborhoods and maybe doing better, and was a little jealous and envious of others, but still also very, I knew what my neighborhood was, and I was sort of proud of my neighborhood. And interestingly enough, in what's happening today in the Olympics, a person who lived across the street from me where I grew up is now, his son is in the Olympics as a downhill skier. And now I'm redefining myself as my neighborhood again, thinking about, oh man, somebody from my old neighborhood is competing for a medal in the Olympics. So one way we define ourselves is kind of like, what street did we grow up in? Another way we define ourselves is like, all of a sudden, if you're cheering for the Olympics, where you may have been a Philadelphia Eagles fan or some other fan of some other team or some other, school or something, but now we're Americans, right? Now we're cheering for the Americans. And all of a sudden, all these people that are maybe different looking than us, the young girl in the snowboard that took the gold medal came from Korea. She's competing in Korea. Her parents were immigrants. They came to this country, and she won a gold medal. And she's one of us. I'm one of her, right? Because she's an American, and I identify that way. But a lot of times we focus on the differences, not the ways that we're alike, right? We focus on things where we are somehow different. The person who grew up in my town but lived in a little higher value street who got to go to camp, they were different than me. The person who was a different religion was different than me. The person who was a different color was different than me. Or even within people who are of color, there are shades of colors. And those people who are lighter or darker are different than me. And so we have all these different ways of defining the other. And yet again, sometimes all that goes away when we identify and want to be like that person. One of the childhood heroes I had growing up was a basketball player named Bill Russell. Now, Bill Russell doesn't look at all like me. I'm short, he's tall. I'm white, he's black. But Bill Russell was a Boston Celtic, and he was perhaps one of the best to ever play the game. Now, I don't know exactly what the criteria is for who's the best to ever play the game, but one way I know that we measure success is winning. Bill Russell won as a college player, playing for the NCAAs. His college won the national championship. And then as a basketball player, in 11 seasons of playing, some of them a couple that he was coaching, he won 9 championships. NBA, National Basketball Association championships, out of 11 seasons. Nobody's ever done that. And I read a book once that Bill Russell was the author of. I may have had somebody co-write it with him, called White Lightning. And it was a book about his ability as a player, that sometimes when he and the rest of the team that was playing basketball for the Celtics at the time he was playing got into what other people have since called flow. There was like this white lightning that happened, and all of a sudden it was like surreal, he described, as an experience of just, we couldn't lose. There was a sense that when we played at the end of the game, there was no way we could lose. And I wanted to be like Bill Russell. And I identified with Bill Russell. And I identified with being a Boston Celtic. Despite the fact that he was tall and I was short, and he was black and I was white. So my point is that sometimes, despite the fact about appearances, we can identify with the other and feel like they're not the O, they're the X. We're an X. We're all that group of X's that we were talking about, as opposed to, hey, that person's different than me. He comes from a different place. He looks a lot different. His skin color is different. His religion is different. And he's tall and I'm short. Or he's a Boston Celtic and I'm from Massachusetts and I love the Boston teams and he's like me. My point in all that is to say to you that, as we celebrate Black History Month and we celebrate the values and the contributions of black people to our community in multiple ways, from Martin Luther King to President Obama to all these different people that have achieved much in their lives and demonstrated that all of us can be Americans, and we can identify that. All of us can be more than just Americans. We can be human beings together, right? So that we can celebrate the people in other places, not just in America, who are not the same color as us, but who are wonderful human beings. Because if we aspire to be wonderful human beings, then let's aspire to be like all those other human beings and not worry about what we look like, what religion we believe in, or whether we don't believe in God at all. But what we care about is making the world a better place. I mean, a recent division in this country is, of course, this whole thing with, whether or not you're a Trump supporter or you hate him. And there's some in between. But, I mean, it seems like quite a few people are in one camp that thinks he's the greatest thing that's ever happened to this country. And some other people think that he's the worst thing that's ever happened to this country. Now, again, I think when we polarize and we pull ourselves apart, we lose something of value. And there are times and there are things that people do. I mean, just like the caller we had, where at some point you just say, you know what? Some behavior is just totally unacceptable. I don't care what somebody achieves. And other people, hey, you know what, some things were unacceptable, but I want the relationship because there's value in the relationship, and I'm going to look past and somehow move past things that have happened in the past because I want that relationship. That's what's important to me. There's not a lot of right or wrong here as much as I want to, because people make different decisions for different reasons, and I don't want to make judgments. One of the things that happened to me many, many years ago that I have a lot of value, place a lot of value on, is that I was trained as a therapist. Now, you have to understand that if you're trained as a therapist, you have to learn how to be non-judgmental. Now, non-judgmental was very different. I grew up in the 60s, and I went to Woodstock, and I was, rebelling against the war in Vietnam because I thought, why are we there, and why are we fighting? And like Muhammad Ali said, none of those people are trying to kill me. Why am I going over there to try to kill them? So I was all caught up in that too. But then when I was trained to be a therapist, because I wanted somehow to make people more comfortable with their emotions. I've been doing this work for a long time, folks. And I wanted people to understand how to deal more intelligently with what they were feeling. And in trying to do that, I chose the route of becoming a counselor and a therapist. And one of the things that you get trained early on is that you can't judge people. To be effective, you have to be non-judgmental. I got to say, honestly, I struggled at times with, I dealt with child molesters, people that were pedophiles. Not a lot, but those were the ones that were the most difficult for me to try and understand and get inside. Who is this person? How could you do those horrible things? And despite the fact that they did horrible things, how can I help them? And as long as you're thinking they're doing horrible things and they're hateful, terrible, awful people, you can't help them. So somehow you have to listen to all the things that are different. And if you want a relationship, try and find some way to build a bridge between you and them. And believe somewhere, somehow, something inside them is compelling and powerful. And whether you believe in an afterlife or not, that somehow you believe in the soul of a human being, that there's something good in all of us. And that somehow, if someone can get past the evil that's been done by an individual and touch whatever goodness might be there and bring that goodness out, somehow that's going to benefit that person and the world. In my religion, I believe if you help one person, you save the world. Just one person. So this show's all about trying to help people one person at a time. If you'd like to call in, the number to call, and I'll give you the numbers, 203-331-9756. If you've got something you'd like to chat about, the number to call is 203-331-9756. 203-331-9756. And I'll give you a minute. You're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, serving Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties in Connecticut and Suffolk County in New York, as well as communities around the world via podcast and streaming at WPKN.org. Streaming at WPKN.org. You can also listen to us in the podcast on SoundCloud if you like my show. Again, it's called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'm Chuck Wolf, and it's pretty easy to find. You go to WPKN.org and you click on podcast, and you, I don't know, if you have iTunes, you can look on iTunes. I have a Galaxy Note 8 phone, and I typically look on SoundCloud. It's just easier for me to use, and I have a regular Windows computer, and so I use SoundCloud there too. And it's, you can find lots of shows that I've done in the past that are now being podcast, and lots of good ones. I hope you think so. Anyway, again, the show is The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'm Chuck Wolf. And the show's about having you call in if you've got something like Sue did, if you wanted to chat about. Again, the number's 203-331-9756. And the whole idea is to try and help you to deal with the emotions you might be experiencing. and to know whether or not that emotion that you're feeling is one that you want to keep or you want to change. In Sue's case, it's one she wanted to keep, but wanted to feel justified in keeping it. And again, in my experience, if somebody's harmful to my child, and I mean, this is me. I'm not necessarily being an expert here. I'm just being someone who cares about my children quite deeply. All right, I got a call. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hey, Chuck, this is Scotty calling.
Hi, Scotty. How you doing?
Hey, Chuck, hold on one second. Let me turn down my radio so I don't got this big echo.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have the echo either.
Thank you.
Hey, listen to this. Echo, 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 echo. Woo! Okay, that was fun. Anyway, hey, Chuck, I'm not exactly sure what, were you calling for a topic for somebody to call in, or, because I just kind of tuned you in, and then I've been wanting to call you for a little while, and it's a pretty funny story in regards to your show and the emotions that it caused somebody else.
Sure, go ahead. I mean, the topic was really about that I've been talking about today is about the other. It's Black History Month, and if you're not black, what does that mean to you? And I was trying to make the case that sometimes we identify often with what's different between you and me and everybody else that's out there, or we identify what's the same between you and me, and at the highest level, we're all kind of human beings and part of the planet, and somehow, I tend to try to bring people to the place where, focusing on differences is understandable, but it's not necessarily helpful.
Yeah, well, here's how I feel about that one, as a matter of fact. And so, listen, I think that in life, black, white, orange, yellow, green, whatever color you are, is that if you are a good person, you are a good person. If you're not a good person, you're not a good person. Or, black, white, orange, it doesn't matter. As long as, you're not stomping kitties or hurting children, you're all right in my book. And regardless, everybody's got their own talents, everybody's got their own skill. Some people choose to use their skills, and some people don't.
Right.
My thing in life, I battled alcoholism for so very long, and I was so stuck up in my own crapola,
right,
that and what happens, and you just get angry, and then things overtake you, and especially like with the new administration that's come in, and it's caused a lot of put up them walls, and we're not taking it anymore. I mean, it's caused a lot of things that people haven't been able to say that they really felt. These ignorant people that now they have their voice, and it's caused a lot. And it's for me, color is not an issue. Race, creed. I mean, hey, as long as you're not hurting kids, smashing glass on the street, hey. Everybody's. We all got to live.
It's interesting you say that, Scotty. Let me interrupt you for a second. Go ahead. Just to tell you that when I used to do therapy, I used to, when people were wondering about behavior, that was, they wondered, should I be doing something different about this? I said, my basic criteria was if you're not hurting yourself and you're not hurting others, then pretty much anything's probably okay. I mean,
right.
You have to qualify that. You can't say everything's okay just because of that. But, I mean, the general criteria was, as long as you're not hurting yourself and you're not hurting anybody else, then, what's the problem?
Yeah, my terminology of that is as long as you're not stomping kitties or hurting kids.
No, I got that.
And, I mean, which is true. And we all got to live. We all got to be here on this crazy spinning rock that we call Earth, and can't we all just get along?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Now, you said you had a story, so I'm curious about that. What was your story?
I do. I'll try to make it as quick as possible because it's absolutely dropped down hilarious. So I had called you quite a while back, and you're speaking about the holidays, and I called in and just talked about people drunk typing, right? You get hammered up, and then you're late night on the computer, and you're like, rah, or texting, and things you can't take back, things that go out to the universe and
right.
you can't delete. So And as I said, I had my bout of alcoholism for so long. I'll always be an alcoholic, but I'm not a practicing one anymore. I got about 5 years without a sip of booze.
Great, congratulations.
And so at any rate, but I do not claim sobriety, okay? I'm not saying I've been sober, but booze was my downfall, and I dropped that like a hot potato. Well, it wasn't that easy at all, but that's a whole different story. And so anyway, so one of my friends who's a landscaper, and we'll just say that, you know, he listens to like PLR and, you know, like, you know, wants to hear AC/DC and blah, blah, blah. And so anyway, he's got these headphones with radio in it. So apparently when I was on the air with you, talking with you about this, he had just tuned in at the tail end of the conversation. And far be it for me to understand how, like, he was listening to something intelligent, for gosh sakes, because he's like, you know, he's one of them guys. So at any rate, so immediately after hanging up with you, and because, you know, well, I'll just say that Scotty's not exactly my real name, but
sure, okay.
It's my on-air name. How's that?
Yep.
And so he calls me up and he's like, I heard you on the air and you're just a pack of lies and you claim that you, and I said, I didn't, sobriety is not exactly what I said here, there, friend. And he got so mad at me and we got in a huge argument. And didn't talk for like 3 months because he is so emotionally inept and like fly off the handle kind of guy, and so because of emotional roadmap, it sent my buddy off the trail. But we since made up, and it was hilarious because I had to fully explain to him that you didn't hear their full conversation, and I did not claim sobriety. I just said I haven't had a drink, you know, and it's just funny. So your show caused all that, but then made our friendship a little stronger after that. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure how the show helped in that sense, but
yeah, it totally did. It was hilarious, and it's just so funny because, you know, that my friend tuned into something other than, you know, Metallica and AC/DC, and he was listening to the emotional roadmap, which really flipped my mind out because he's not that tight, you know.
Okay, well, let me just qualify that and say that people that listen to AC/DC and Metallica,
oh yeah,
they're good people too.
I know. I listen to AC/DC and Metallica and all that, and I'm not pleased that that's not where I'm going with that. But like strictly, you know.
No, I understand. He was listening to just something that was, you know, a big drum beat in his head, and not listening to something that was making him thoughtful. Okay.
I also have to explain my emotions today. I'm feeling a little sad and lonely because I don't have any pretty girl to give a flower to today. So, what do lonely guys do on Valentine's Day?
You know what? Try and figure out what you can do as a volunteer and help somebody else.
I know. I got my music, so I'll just sit down and play and record and play my accordion and my Hammond SB1 organ.
Okay. Well, so listen. Thank you for the phone call, and I hope you enjoy your music on Valentine's Day, and if
absolutely, I'm gonna write me a love song. You know what it's gonna be called? I love you. You smell like a basement.
Well, okay. Oh, you could also sit right down and write yourself a letter and pretend it came from you or something. You know, so there you go.
Something like that. Hey, there's a song in there. Maybe I might make a big hit out of that one. I don't know.
Okay. Take care, Scott.
Hey,
Thank you.
Take care, Chuck. Thanks a lot for being there, man. Over and out.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, that was kind of fun. So anyway, folks, this has been Chuck Wolf. You've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And as you consider that this is Black History Month, if there's something that you can do to contribute to that in a meaningful way, great. One of the ways I've tried to emphasize and make a contribution today is to think about how we are almost always thinking about how we're different than others, and yet the potential exists for all of us to think much more about how we are the same and how we can make a difference in people's lives, no matter what they look like, no matter what they think, no matter who they are, and that there's somehow maybe there's goodness in even the people that seem like they're so different than us in negative ways, that we perhaps, if we look hard enough, we might find something good to connect with. And then again, have less of this idea of other and more of how we're all in the same planet trying to make the world a better place. So anyway, folks, this is Chuck Wolf. You've been listening to, and I want to just make one pitch here for the for the fund drive that we're on. If you've liked the show, if you like it, again, you can listen on podcasts, and you can listen to, there's a public radio exchange where I've posted a lot of shows too, prx.org if you want to go there. But if you want to contribute, the number to call to contribute for WPKN is 203-384-9756. So if you really like this show and other shows on PKN, and you value our radio station, you're our community, folks. We are a community radio station, and we depend on you for our funding and for our hands-on help. We get a lot of volunteers coming out of the community as well. So thanks for listening, everybody. I'll be back in the first week of March and the second week in March. I'm on Wednesdays, 12 to 1 p.m., and this is WPKN 89.5 FM. Chuck Wolf, the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. So long, everybody.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.